Okay, in this video I'm going to show how I modify Dreaming Tree SVG files so that I can print them on different size cardstock, because most of the ones they have are designed for 12 by 12 cardstock. So this is an example here where it has two layers. It has a score layer and it has the main cutout layer. And in this case, these stamen down here, I want to keep both layers as cut when I import them into Cricut Design Space, but the rest of them I want my main cut layer, and then the other layer is going to be a scoring layer, and I'm actually going to change that to a score type when I'm in Cricut Design Space. But in order to do that, I have to break this all apart. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my image here. Under stroke here at the bottom, I'm going to right click and change that to black, just so I can see my cut lines a little better. Then I'm going to right click here and I'm going to ungroup. So now I have two groups. The one that's kind of inside is the score one, and the one that's outside is the main. So I'm just going to click that until I get one of the groups, and then I'm going to right click. Actually, I'm going to go to layer, and I am going to move selection to layer. Now I'm going to have to create a layer for it since I don't have a layer for it. So the first thing I need to do is come up to layer and come down to layers, and I want to create a layer, and we'll call one the main cut, and then the other we'll call score. And we actually want the score below the main cut, but I am going to now come over here and select it until I get my main cut file. Then I'm going to come to layer, and I am going to move to layer. Let's see, layer, and move selection to layer. And I'm going to move this to the main cut layer. And so now I can click the little eyeball and that layer will disappear. Now I want to kind of click until I get my, well, in fact, let's hide the main layer. And so now I can click on here until I get my score layer. Then I'm going to click on layer up here, and I'm going to move selection to layer. And this one I'm going to select to the scoring layer. Okay, now I'm going to want to start breaking these things up. So we'll work with the score layer first. So I'm going to make sure my selection tool up here is selected. And I'm just going to get these stamen right here, these lines right here with the stamen. So, first of all, I want to select the whole thing. And I want to come up here to path, and I want to break apart. And so that's going to break apart to all the different individual pieces. So I'm going to just select these stamen here, and I'm going to come up to path, and I'm going to combine. And then I'm going to hide the score and show the main. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select this, I'm going to come up to path, and I'm going to break apart. Then I am just going to select my stamen here, and I'm going to come up to path, and I'm going to combine them. And so now, if I select the score and the main, oops, I didn't want to do that, edit, undo move. I want to select both of these. I want to right click and I want to group them. So now I can move this piece out of the way, and that's ready to do. Okay. Now, so that I don't miss my scores here, I'm going to just break these apart two at a time. And so, let's see, where's my score line? Okay, let's move the score above so we can see it. Oh, okay, I see. I had the score lines hidden. Okay. So I am going to do the same thing now to break these leaves apart. So I'm going to make sure my selection tool is selected. And I'm going to hide the main cut. And I am going to now just select the score lines for those two leaves. And then I'm going to come up to Path. And I am going to combine. Then I'm going to look at the main cut, and I'm going to hide the score. And I'm just going to select these two, and I'm going to come up to Path, and I'm going to combine. And now I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to group them. So we've got this pair of leaves done, and we're going to repeat the process for the other ones. So I'm going to hide my main cut. Let's see, first of all, okay, the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two scores, and I'm going to Path, and I'm going to combine them. Then I will hide my score and go to the main cut. I'm going to select these two leaves, and I'm going to come up to Path, and I'm going to combine them. Select them both, right click, and group, and we've got that pair of leaves. And then we'll do the same thing. I'm going to hide my main cut, select these score lines, come up to Path, and I'm going to combine. Display the main cut, select these two, come up to Path, and combine. Now display the score lines again. Select those two, right click, and group, and I've got my second set of leaves. And then I'm going to hide the main, select these, and I will come up to Path. I will combine them. Hide the scores and come to the main cuts. Select these two leaves, right click, and Path, and combine. Then I'll display my score lines again. Select these two leaves, right click, and let's see, edit, undo move, right click, and group them. And so we've got this two set of leaves. Then we're going to do the same thing with here. Hide the main cut. I'm going to select all these score lines. I'm going to come up to Path, and I'm going to combine them. Hide the score lines and just the main cuts. Select them all, and I want to make sure I get that top leaf too. Path, and combine. Display my score lines, and we'll right click, and we will, let's see, right click and group. And then we've got our final. So we've got this batch of leaves, we've got this batch of leaves, and then these batches right here. Like that, and then we've got our stamen. So need to see, that's probably these two actually, and then these two, and then these two, then this one. And I'm going to select the whole thing, right click, and group. Then I'm going to File, Save As, I want to change this to a plain SVG. And I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to replace the file that I have in there already. Okay, and so now we are ready to come into our Cricut design space. I'll delete the file we have in here already. And I'm going to go to upload. And this is one that I actually want to delete, so I'm going to delete that one real quick. So we'll come to upload image, browse. This is the one we just did in Inkscape. And we will save it. Select it and insert the image. Okay, now the one thing that we want to do here is, first thing I'm going to do is come up here, right click and ungroup. I want to ungroup everything. So now we have our individual pieces here. And for all these pieces here, I want to keep the score lines as score lines. And I'm going to be using my scoring tool. And so we'll work these one piece at a time. So this one here, I want to change the score line here to score. And then I want to attach the two layers together. And then we'll do the same thing with this set of leaves. I want to just select the score line, change it from cut to score. And I'll select both of them and I'm going to attach them. And do the same thing with the rest of these. I want to change the score line to a score. And then I want to attach them together. And the same with this. I'm going to change the score line to a score. Select both of them and attach. And this one, I want to change the score line to a score and attach both of them together. Now this one, I do want to keep the quote score unquote as cut lines because that's how it's going to cut these out. But I do still want to attach the two layers together. And this one, I want to make sure, let's do a color sync with this and drag that down there to make sure it's the same color as this. So now if we do a make it, and then we can change these to 8.5 by 11, and it's just going to position these so that you can use two 8.5 by 11 sheets instead of a 12 by 12 sheet. And so that's how you can modify these files. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.